How were pyramids built? It's a question many have asked. Scientists finally have the answer, and it's a simple one. The Egyptians used the Nile, the river.
Forget what you learned in school. This discovery changes everything we thought we knew about the pyramids. Recent studies and engineering simulations have revealed groundbreaking clues about how the ancient Egyptians built the Step Pyramid of Djoser, the world's first pyramid. What seemed like an impossible feat of ancient technology now appears to have a surprisingly clever and achievable method behind it. Let's dig deeper into the pyramid mystery that modern science just solved, the first pyramid that started it all. The story begins around 2680 BC in the ancient necropolis of Saqqara, just south of modern-day Cairo. Before this moment in history, Egyptian rulers were buried in simple rectangular structures called mastabas, which were essentially fancy mud brick tombs. They were practical, sure, but hardly the stuff of legends. Then came Pharaoh Djoser, a king who wanted something more than just another boring burial mound. He wanted immortality, and he had just the right person to make it happen. Enter Imhotep, a man so brilliant that the ancient Egyptians would eventually worship him as a god. Think about that for a second. This was a guy who started as a commoner and rose to become the chief advisor to the pharaoh. Imhotep wore many hats, serving as an architect, physician, astronomer, priest, and engineer, all rolled into one extraordinary package. Basically, he was the Leonardo da Vinci of ancient Egypt, except he lived 4,000 years earlier. When Djoser asked Imhotep to design his tomb, the architect came up with something revolutionary. Instead of building just one mastaba, he decided to stack 6 of them on top of each other, each layer smaller than the one below. The result was a stunning stepped structure that rose about 200 feet into the sky, dominating the landscape. This was a statement, and the world's very first pyramid. The Step Pyramid complex wasn't just impressive because of its height. It covered an area roughly the size of a small city, with temples, courtyards, ceremonial halls, and elaborate underground chambers. Imhotep broke new ground by using limestone blocks instead of traditional mud bricks, making this the first large-scale stone structure in human history. The precision of the work was stunning, with workers hand-carving over 1,680 decorative niches into the enclosure walls. The mystery that stumped everyone. For generations, archaeologists, historians, and engineers have scratched their heads trying to figure out exactly how the ancient Egyptians managed to build these colossal monuments. The numbers alone are mind-boggling. The Step Pyramid used thousands upon thousands of limestone blocks, each weighing several hundred kilograms on average. Some estimates suggest that constructing this single pyramid would have required moving and precisely placing enough stone to fill hundreds of modern trucks. Traditional theories always pointed to ramps as the primary method. Scholars imagined massive earthen or brick ramps spiraling around the pyramid, allowing workers to drag heavy stones upward using wooden sledges, ropes, and sheer muscle power. Some researchers proposed straight ramps, others suggested zigzagging paths, and a few even theorized about internal ramps hidden within the pyramid structure itself. Each theory had its supporters and its problems. The trouble with the ramp theory, though, is that it creates almost as many questions as it answers. Building a ramp large enough and sturdy enough to reach the top of even a moderately sized pyramid would require an absolutely massive amount of material, possibly more than the pyramid itself. Where did all that ramp material go? How did they maintain the structural integrity of these ramps as they grew higher and steeper? And most puzzling of all, how did ancient workers manage such precision without modern surveying equipment? Then there's the sheer logistical nightmare of coordinating such a massive workforce. Ancient Greek historian Herodotus famously claimed that 100,000 men worked for 20 years to build the Great Pyramid of Giza, though modern scholars think that number might be exaggerated. Even so, feeding, housing, and organizing tens of thousands of workers would have been an incredible feat of management. Something about these traditional explanations never quite added up, and researchers knew they were missing a crucial piece of the puzzle, a groundbreaking discovery. hidden in plain sight, everything changed in 2024 when a team of researchers led by Dr. Xavier Landreau from the CEA Paleotechnic Institute published a study that sent shockwaves through the archaeological community. Using modern technology, including high-resolution satellite imagery, digital elevation models, and advanced computer simulations, they discovered something remarkable hidden in the landscape around the Step Pyramid. What they found suggests that the ancient Egyptians might have been far more technologically advanced than we ever imagined. The researchers identified a previously undocumented watershed covering about 15 square kilometers west of the Saqqara site. This watershed could have potentially connected to an even larger basin spanning 400 square kilometers. But here's where things get really interesting. The team discovered that the massive stone structure known as Geyser El Mudir, which had puzzled archaeologists for years, wasn't just a random enclosure. According to their analysis, it functioned as a sophisticated check dam designed to trap water and sediment from seasonal floods. Even more fascinating was what they found in a mysterious feature called the Dry Moat, a deep trench carved into the bedrock near the pyramid's southern section. When the team examined this structure closely, they realized it wasn't just a decorative feature or a quarry as previously thought. It showed all the hallmarks of an advanced water treatment facility, complete with settling basins, retention areas, and purification channels. These features, carved directly into the stone, look remarkably similar to systems we still use in modern water treatment plants today. The real bombshell came when researchers analyzed the internal architecture of the Step Pyramid itself. They found a network of shafts, chambers, and corridors that seemed designed to channel water throughout the structure. The wear patterns on these interior passages suggested repeated exposure to flowing water. When they put all these pieces together using computer modeling, a stunning picture emerged. The ancient Egyptians might have built the world's first hydraulic lift system, using water pressure to raise the massive building blocks into place. How the hydraulic system actually worked. So how exactly would this ancient hydraulic system have functioned? The researchers propose a brilliantly elegant solution that takes advantage of one of Egypt's most abundant resources, Nile floodwater. During the annual flooding season, water from the Nile and its tributaries would flow into the carefully engineered system around Saqqara. The Geyser El Mudir Dam would capture this water, creating a temporary lake west of the pyramid complex. This collected water would then flow through the Dry Moat, where the series of carved basins and channels would filter out sediment and purify the water. This step was absolutely crucial. Sediment-laden water would be too heavy and unstable for lifting operations, but clean, sediment-free water would work perfectly. The ancient engineers understood fluid dynamics well enough to design an effective multi-stage filtration system that prepared the water for its most important job. Once purified, the clean water would be directed into vertical shafts inside the pyramid itself. Picture a large, sealed float or platform sitting at the bottom of one of these water-filled shafts. As water flowed into the shaft, the increasing water level would naturally raise the float, lifting whatever cargo rested on top of it. The researchers described this as a volcano fashion of construction, with stones essentially being pushed upward from the center of the pyramid rather than dragged up external ramps. The beauty of this system lies in its simplicity and efficiency. Water does the heavy lifting literally, using natural buoyancy and hydraulic pressure instead of thousands of sweating workers. A relatively small team could control the water flow, directing where and when stones needed to be lifted. This would explain how the ancient Egyptians achieved such remarkable precision in their construction. It would also explain why pyramid building seemed to accelerate so dramatically after Djoser's reign. Once they figured out how to harness water power, they could scale up their ambitions considerably. The engineering genius of Imhotep. Understanding this potential hydraulic system makes us appreciate Imhotep's genius on an entirely new level. This wasn't just an architect who could stack stones in an aesthetically pleasing way. This was a visionary engineer who understood advanced principles of hydraulics, fluid dynamics, and structural engineering that we thought weren't developed until thousands of years later. Imhotep was literally thinking in 3 dimensions, designing the visible pyramid, and also an entire interconnected system of water management infrastructure. Consider what it would take to conceive such a system from scratch. Imhotep would need to understand watersheds and how water flows across terrain. He'd need to grasp the principles of dam construction to safely capture and store massive amounts of water. He'd need expertise in filtration and sedimentation to design an effective water treatment process. And he'd need a solid understanding of buoyancy, hydraulic pressure, and mechanical advantage to create a working lift system. This is advanced engineering by any standard, ancient or modern. What makes this even more impressive is that Imhotep was working with a brand new building material. Stone construction on this scale had never been attempted before. He couldn't flip through a textbook or consult centuries of accumulated building knowledge. He had to figure everything out through experimentation, calculation, and probably more than a few failed prototypes. The fact that his Step Pyramid still stands today, nearly 5,000 years later, is testament to how well he understood the principles of engineering and architecture. Imhotep's influence extended far beyond just this one project. After his death, he was elevated to divine status, becoming the god of medicine and wisdom in Egyptian mythology. The Greeks would later identify him with their own god of medicine, Asclepius. To be deified as a commoner was virtually unheard of in ancient Egypt, reserved for only the most extraordinary individuals. Imhotep earned that honor through his groundbreaking work that literally changed the face of Egyptian civilization and architecture forever. Evidence supporting the water power theory. The hydraulic lift theory isn't just wild speculation. The researchers backed up their claims with substantial evidence from multiple sources. First, there's the geographical and hydrological evidence. Detailed topographical surveys show that the landscape around Saqqara once had very different water flow patterns than today. Ancient rainfall patterns in the region were significantly different 4,500 years ago, with more frequent and substantial flooding that could have easily filled the proposed reservoir system. Archaeological evidence also supports this theory. Excavations have found that the Step Pyramid sits in the middle of an elaborate complex that includes the mysterious Djeser el-Mudir enclosure and the sophisticated dry moat system. The precise function of these structures has puzzled researchers for decades. Viewing them as components of an integrated hydraulic system suddenly makes them make sense. The placement, design, and engineering of these features align perfectly with what you'd need for a water-based construction system. Then there's the internal architecture of the pyramid itself. The network of shafts, chambers, and passages inside the Step Pyramid has features consistent with repeated water exposure. Some passages show wear patterns that suggest flowing water. The geometry and dimensions of certain shafts seem almost perfectly designed to function as hydraulic lift chambers. The researchers created detailed computer models that demonstrated how water flowing through these spaces could generate sufficient lifting force to raise multi-ton stone blocks. Perhaps, most intriguingly, historical context supports the possibility of advanced hydraulic knowledge in ancient Egypt. Before the 4th dynasty, flooding was actually a bigger problem than water scarcity for Egyptian builders. Managing surplus water would have been a priority, and innovative engineers like Imhotep might have realized they could turn this liability into an asset. Later pyramids show evidence of increasingly sophisticated water management around their construction sites, suggesting that hydraulic techniques continued to evolve over time. Why? This changes everything we know. If this hydraulic lift theory proves correct, it fundamentally rewrites our understanding of ancient Egyptian engineering capabilities. We've always known the Egyptians were clever builders, but this suggests they possessed sophisticated knowledge of hydraulic engineering centuries or even millennia before historians thought such technology existed. The implications ripple outward, forcing us to reconsider what ancient civilizations were truly capable of achieving. This discovery also explains several long-standing mysteries about pyramid construction that traditional ramp theories struggled to address. For instance, how did builders achieve such incredible precision in placing stones, sometimes with gaps between blocks so tiny that you can't fit a piece of paper between them? Hydraulic lifts offer much finer control than dragging stones up ramps. How did construction speed accelerate so dramatically after the first few pyramids? Mastering water power would provide exactly that kind of efficiency boost. The theory also helps explain the apparent evolution in pyramid construction techniques. After Djoser's Step Pyramid, subsequent pharaohs built increasingly ambitious structures with smooth sides and perfect geometrical proportions. The Great Pyramid of Giza, built just a few generations later, used stone blocks weighing up to 80 tons, far heavier than anything used in earlier construction. Hydraulic lift technology would have made handling these massive stones much more feasible than purely manual methods. Moreover, this discovery highlights an important lesson about ancient history. Too often, we assume that ancient peoples were primitive or lacking in scientific understanding simply because they lived thousands of years ago. The reality, as this research demonstrates, is that ancient engineers were brilliant problem solvers who developed ingenious solutions to complex challenges using the resources and knowledge available to them. We shouldn't underestimate human ingenuity just because it happened in the distant past. The critics weigh in. As exciting as this hydraulic lift theory is, it hasn't been universally accepted by the archaeological community. Several respected researchers have raised important questions and concerns about the hypothesis. University of Toronto archaeologist Oren Siegel points out that Djeser El Mudir probably couldn't have held enough water from seasonal rains to maintain the proposed hydraulic system for extended construction periods. Ancient Egypt did get more rainfall than today, but was it really enough to power a massive water-based construction project? Egyptologist Kamil Kuraskevich from the University of Warsaw raises another valid concern. No ancient Egyptian texts mention the proposed lake or elaborate water management system. Egyptian scribes were pretty meticulous about recording important details of major construction projects, so why would they completely omit such a revolutionary technology? The absence of documentary evidence is troubling and suggests we might be reading too much into the physical evidence. Some critics also argue that the Step Pyramid's stones were actually smaller and more manageable than those used in later pyramids, averaging around 300 kilograms each. Workers could have reasonably moved these blocks using traditional methods of sledges, ramps, and human power, without needing sophisticated hydraulic systems. The hydraulic theory might be an unnecessarily complicated solution to a problem that had simpler answers all along. However, proponents of the hydraulic theory counter these objections. They acknowledge that more research is definitely needed, particularly on-site excavations and drilling to confirm ancient water levels and flow patterns. They point out that the absence of textual evidence isn't necessarily meaningful, as many ancient construction techniques weren't thoroughly documented in surviving records. The ongoing debate highlights how much we still have to learn about ancient Egyptian engineering, and that's exactly what makes this field so exciting. What modern engineers think. Contemporary engineers and construction experts find the hydraulic lift proposal technically credible. The principles behind it, buoyancy and hydraulic pressure, are well understood and have been applied by humans for thousands of years. From their perspective, ancient Egyptians could have developed a water-powered lifting system using the materials and knowledge available at the time. The idea fits within known physical laws, making it a serious hypothesis rather than mere speculation. Modern civil engineers recognize the practical efficiency of hydraulic systems. Even today, hydraulics are used to lift entire buildings or operate elevators in skyscrapers worldwide. The same underlying physics could have been applied in ancient Egypt, just with simpler materials and tools. What stands out to experts is the simplicity and power of the concept. It would have allowed heavy loads to be moved smoothly and predictably, reducing labor and risk during construction. Some engineers see parallels between the hydraulic theory and modern controlled flooding techniques. In regions like Louisiana, water is managed to reshape land or raise structures, demonstrating the effectiveness of working with natural forces. Ancient Egyptian builders could have used a similar mindset, harnessing the seasonal floods of the Nile to assist with their monumental projects. Rather than resisting nature, they may have used it as an ally in construction. Technical simulations have reinforced the theory's plausibility. Tests and computer models suggest that a hydraulic system of the type described could produce enough lift and water flow to raise large stone blocks. The proposed design also includes practical details, such as sediment filtration and calculated shaft dimensions. These features indicate deliberate engineering choices, lending credibility to the idea that the system was both intentional and functional. Future research will determine how far this theory can go. Archaeologists plan to conduct further on-site studies, including sediment sampling and advanced imaging. Technologies like ground-penetrating radar and muon scanning could uncover hidden chambers or water channels within the pyramids. If similar water management structures are found at other pyramid sites, it would support the view that ancient engineers mastered hydraulic techniques long before modern civilization rediscovered them. The discovery of a possible hydraulic lift system used to build Egypt's first pyramid challenges long-held ideas about ancient engineering. New research suggests Imhotep's design may have involved advanced water-based technology hidden beneath the sands. Though questions remain, the findings have reignited scientific interest in how these massive structures were built, proving that even after 4,500 years, the pyramids still hold untold secrets. What do you think about this hydraulic lift theory? Does it make sense, or do you believe the traditional ramp methods are more likely? Drop your thoughts in the comments below.